Say it three times. Yeah, I'm a week late on doing this review. Every time I wanted to see this movie, something came up, so I haven't had time to. So putting it out a week later is probably, well, we don't get any views anyway, so it doesn't matter. Um, I have it at my theater, but I just don't feel like being there if I don't have to be, so I don't watch movies there. I'm leaving an appointment, and there's an RC Theaters. I've never heard of these theaters before. This clearly used to be a Regal, um, and it's like somebody else has taken over it. So that was the closest theater to where I was today. So I said, fuck it, I got time. I'm gonna stop and see Beetlejuice. Uh, I liked it. I liked it, but it doesn't hold water. I think it's a lot of style over any substance, but I'm not mad at that because there's so many fun gags in it, and you can tell that Tim Burton is enjoying himself, and that's kind of my biggest takeaway. Is I was a huge Tim Burton fan. Um, growing up, uh, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Beetlejuice, Batman Returns, Nightmare Before Christmas, everything essentially up to Planet of the Apes, probably, like, a Tim Burton movie was an event. It was one of those things. Like Spielberg would have been, I mean, still, but Spielberg still is, but it's not like it was in the heyday of, 80s Spielberg. Um, so, everything in his Planet of the Apes into the Disney stuff era has been so disappointing. And then the style becomes the substance, and there's not much of either of it. Like, Dumbo and uh, Alice in Wonderland and shit like that is just so, like, it's just like visual diarrhea, basically. And I hated it. And it sucks when you see a director who I had so much love for, and I thought he had such great style, um, just to come and kick it into autopilot. Um, I enjoyed Frankenweenie for what it was, but I mean, full disclosure, an ex-girlfriend of mine took me to that for my birthday just because she knew that nobody else would be in the theater and we could fool around in the theater. I like Big Eyes for what it was. It was a very non-Tim Burton-y looking movie. Big Fish is one that just breaks my heart every time I see it. I think that might be his last true like film. Obviously, Ed Wood is my favorite movie of all time. Batman is what changed everything for me when it comes to wanting to be a filmmaker. And also just learning about everything it had to do with film as well. Like I've said it before in my '89 Batman review. Like, the anticipation leading up to that movie led me to, in an age before the internet, wanting to know who Bo Welch was, and wanting to know who Colleen Atwood was, and Anton Faust, or First, and people like that, and more. I knew who Danny Elfman was from Oingo Boingo. Also, Danny Elfman's score for this, I like the reinterpretation of the original Bullseye Beetlejuice theme, but with a lot of Mars Attacks style additions to it. Again, there's too many threads in this movie. You have Delia, who's now, she's a Zach Baggins kind of, TV personality who can speak to the dead. And her father dies, and which forces her to go back to the house in the first movie. I was a little surprised that they used the dad as even his image in it, because of given what happened with him. He was caught soliciting an underage person for photography, and basically his career was tossed out. Yet after all that stuff happened, he was still in the movie Who's Your Caddy. So Hollywood will still give people opportunities, because pretty much everyone in Hollywood is disgusting and a sex pest. But yeah, dude was apparently, into kids, so fuck that dude. But they use the way that they include him in the movie, but don't include him in the movie is kind of funny. Although they do use his image on like the tombstone and in the stop motion that they do when they're telling how he died, it's done in this kind of stop motion style. I'm sure it's digital, but it looked really cool where he survives a plane crash only to have his head bitten off by a shark. So he goes around the afterlife basically with no head. He's constantly spurting blood out. Um, Beetlejuice's wife is played by Monica Bellucci. Really, Tim Burton was like, I'm gonna make a movie to show everybody how fucking hot my girlfriend is. That dude, for a guy who doesn't comb his hair, Monica Bellucci, Ava Green, Helena Bonham Carter, Lisa Marie. It's like, good for him, dude. Like, I'd love some of that fucking mojo, you know? Granted, now I was a little ugly, weird guy who was with tall, beautiful women for a really long time, so I can't really complain too much, but, I gotta get back to that. I gotta get some of that Tim Burton energy going again. Yeah, so Lydia has to go back with her daughter Astrid, who's played by Jenna Ortega, who I liked her. I'd never seen her in anything before X. And then she was in, obviously she's Wednesday, and then she's in one of the two last Scream movies. I didn't know she was as big as a star she is. I was just like, oh yeah, no, Jenna Ortega, I like her in those horror movies, and they're like, she's like a big fucking star, and I had no idea she was as big a star as she was. But yeah, so Beetlejuice's wife puts herself back together because she's in Lost and Found in the afterlife, and Beetlejuice hacked her to pieces in this amazing scene. I think my favorite scene in the entire movie is there's a lot of Mario Bava isms in this, and Beetlejuice speaking Italian to the Bobs, which are the shrunken head guys in the afterlife who work for him. It's a scene right out of Kill Baby Kill, which I thought was great because when Astrid is looking through the photo albums that she finds in the attic, Lydia's water broke at an all-night Mario Bava film festival during Kill Baby Kill. It's like, oh, it's a cool little combination there. Yeah, so you've got Lydia going back to the house. Lydia's Justin Theroux plays Lydia's fiance, he's a real scumbag in this. I've always liked him. He was a writer on Iron Man 3. He was a writer on Tropic Thunder. He used to be engaged to Jennifer Aniston back in the day. He's really good in it. So you have that plot. You have the Astrid plot where she meets a boy who he says he can help her find her dad in the afterlife, and then spoiler alert, he's a ghost and he's evil, and he's killed his parents. And I saw that coming from a mile away when I saw when they started doing the little clues, like, oh yeah, all this stuff is from the 90s, and oh, I found this book of the recently deceased at a yard sale. I was like, oh, okay, he's a ghost. And then when he's like, oh, I'd rather not go trick-or-treating, we can just hang here in my room, and I was just like, oh, he's a ghost. So you got those plots. You got Beetlejuice, still pining for Lydia. You've got Catherine O'Hara is the best part as Delia. She steals the movie completely. Has some of the best lines in the movie. There's just too much going on. And then you get to a point where you forget that Monica Bellucci is even in the movie for big swaths of it. Because, Delia has to... Willem Dafoe is an afterlife cop who was like a B-movie cop and he's really funny in it. You got a lot of stuff that's going on, and nothing really all sticks together. Like, by the time you get to the ending, you're like, oh, okay, they're just kind of rushing these things together now. But the stop motion and the puppets, I love the fucking puppets, like the Mrs. Bates skeleton that's like connecting the phone connectors. I thought stuff like that is just great. I love the colors in it. And it looked like Michael Keaton was having a really good time. You get a cameo by Danny DeVito in it. You got a great score. Like, all of the things shouldn't work, but I think because I've been waiting for a Tim Burton movie to have that kind of gleeful Spirit Halloween vibe to it for a long time, I was able to kind of look past the clear and present flaws to the stories that are going on in this movie. Their version of the Deo scene doesn't work as well. It was cool to see the Griffin Entertainment logo in the beginning, but using MacArthur Park, whereas in the original one it used Deo. but I hate MacArthur Park. I am not a fan of that song. I've always hated that song, so to be used here, I thought the scene was good, but it wasn't as good as the Deo scene. Um, I don't know. I don't know what else there is to say about it. You'll never match the just the weird, silly art house horror vibe of the original one. But we could have had the Kevin Smith writing the script for Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian. I remember they talked about that on an evening with Kevin Smith. And this also, it felt a little bit more to like the Beetlejuice animated series in a lot of ways, especially a lot of the stuff in the afterlife where it's more of a world and not just one hallway, like we got in the original movie. I thought the Soul Train was a funny idea. I was like, people leaving the other theater were like, oh, it's such a dated reference. I was like, if you're going to call it a Soul Train and you don't make that reference, you're doing yourself a disservice, I don't know, there's a lot of fun stuff. I love the guy who clearly choked in a hot dog eating contest. I love the Santa Claus who must have burned inside the chimney. There's like a lot of great little gags in this new one. So yeah, I don't know. It's not the original one. It's hard to ever meet something like that again. Especially in an era now where we live in, where that one kind of came out of nowhere in 1988, and you could get away with that. Now there are preconceived notions that people have for this world, these characters, that you have to do those certain things. And we were left on two cliffhangers there, that we never found out more about the graffiti artist for Delia's exhibit, and then we never found out what happened to the people who Lydia had on her show with their dog Taco. I wanted to know more about what was haunting their house. So yeah, that's Beetlejuice. And the ending. I fucking loved the use of the theme from Carrie at the end when you'd think it's wrapping it up into a happy little bow. Lydia's husband, who passed away, who was eaten by barracudas, he always wanted to go to the creepiest places in the world, like Dracula's castle. So in the sequence at the end is that the Carrie music is playing. You have them at Dracula's castle, and Astrid sees a boy who sort of looks like a young Raul Julia as Dracula almost, and they get married, and she's having a baby, and then it turns into the It's Alive, where Astrid gives birth to a little Beetlejuice baby that eats two people, and I was just like, okay, this is fun. I like this whole thing. And then you have Beetlejuice waking up next to Lydia, and it's almost like the scene from the Newhart show, and then it all was a dream. But I was like, okay, this is fun. These are just little, like, fun little Tim Burtonisms. So in that regard, I'm glad that Tim Burton is free of Disney, and I hope he does more, like, personal little fun things. I know Beetlejuice is a huge IP, but it felt handmade in a lot of ways. It felt like the use of stop motion and puppets and the practicals and kind of some of the intentionally cheesy cartoony effects. They were there, and it felt like Tim Burton getting closer to his roots. Is it a perfect movie? No. Is it as good as the original one? Not even close. Did it check off the boxes that I thought it was going to check off beforehand? Yeah, pretty much. There's way too many stories going on here, but I had fun with it, and I'd like to know what you guys think of it. Like, it's not perfect, but the leaves are starting to change here. We're getting closer to Halloween. The movie felt like Halloween. I love movies like Casper, Jeepers Creepers, Casper, Hocus Pocus, Halloween 3, movies that just feel like crisp. You can feel the fall in the air, and this movie had that look in spades, and I really, really appreciated that. So it's never going to climb to the ranks of the original one, but it's nice to see that it's making money. It's nice to see Tim Burton giving a shit again, and that's it. Beetlejuice.